So, just to give a little bit of context around why it's important to really pay attention on purpose to gratitude and joy. Um, there's a huge amount of research on this topic, and you've probably heard it. It's Oprah's talked about gratitude journals, and it's in the popular culture. But I'm going to just talk about a couple of different research based things. One of them is that our brain has a negativity bias, which is actually survival based. We always are on the lookout for what is going wrong or what might go wrong. And that's to keep ourselves safe. It's survival of the fittest would line up with that, because the people who aren't watching out, they didn't make it. So sorry to be glib. If something good happens, we don't need to pay so much attention to it because it doesn't put us at risk. And so we let it go by. And so there's this cute saying that we're Teflon for good experiences and Velcro for bad. And if you just think for a minute about that, you can validate it for yourself. If you do any kind of presentation, for instance, or any kind of work related thing, or in your community, and you get a lot of positive feedback, but one person says something a little lukewarm or even negative, what's going to be the thing that sticks in your mind, right? We all know that. So, because of this bias that our brain has, that is part of the hardwired ancestrally of our brains, we have to actually pay attention on purpose to the good stuff. And some of the reasons why that's really important is that practicing gratitude is, this is all research based, is linked to more positive emotions overall, higher reported happiness, decreased loneliness, more closeness in relationships and maintenance of strong bonds in relationships, more pro-social behavior, like a tendency to reach out and help others, increased availability of social support, which is obvious I think if you're really appreciative as opposed to curmudgeonly, friends might just be more available to help you. And gratitude anchors us back to our inner knowing that our peace is within us, which helps us to be resilient with stressors and difficulties. So, gratitude comes down to recognizing and acknowledging your appreciation for anything that provides value or meaning. When practicing gratitude, you can list concrete things like somebody gave you a gift or did a kindness for you, but a lot of the important stuff is more intangible. If you think about, if you go outside during your workday and you feel the cool fall air and take in the fall leaves, you can say that your gratitude is for the leaves and just the crisp air. But really, the gratitude arises because of a feeling that you feel in your body. If you can just think of a time like that where you have a really pleasant experience, and if you notice the felt sense of it in your body, that's what really brings up the experience of gratitude. That's the juicy part. I thought we would just spend a few minutes on an exercise like that, and I'm going to give you some prompts. And if everybody would just write, like with each prompt, or you can write more than one thing if you go faster than I go. This is going to be a short exercise, but just to get us in the mode of thinking appreciatively. So I'm going to just start off by asking you to come into your body, breathing into the space on the inside. And as we've done each time, finding your foundation. Feel your body resting on the chair. You might feel as you breathe into your lower belly that the in-breath brings you more in contact with the seat beneath you. And just notice right now in this moment, anything that's pleasant, anything that you feel grateful or appreciative. And let your attention be in the senses. You might look around the room, you might hear a sound. And as you do this, just try to let the responses arise within you. Keep your attention on your breath, on your foundation, and let the responses arise. If you find yourself looking up to one side, that means you're in your thinking mind. And so try to just come back to your center and receive what arises from your wise self. So just keep breathing, staying in contact with yourself. So breathing through the body and letting yourself really organically receive the answers that arise. Please tell me, what do you love? Please tell me, what gives you joy? Please tell me, what delights you? Please tell me, what do you love? Please tell me, what warms your heart? Please tell me, what gives you joy? Please tell me, what makes you laugh? I'll just wait another minute to let you finish anything else that bubbles up for you. I appreciate you saying that. And there are times in our life that are like that. And when the difficult things are just looming so much bigger that it's hard to find that space in between where we can focus our attention and really take in something good. And that's it's almost a warning flag, because when we get overwhelmed by all the difficulties, then we're losing some of our resiliency. So I'm glad that you're doing something proactive about that, because yeah, it really speaks to how challenging this time is. And I think we all have periods in life that are like that. And when we can cultivate this kind of awareness of what's positive, it's good to practice it, because I think it helps it to be more available during the tough times. We're laying down neural pathways to access the practice of paying attention on purpose to the things that make us happy, balances out that natural tendency to pay attention to the difficulty. All right, we can move on from this. I'll just say that the research shows that just maybe at the end of the day, turning your attention in this direction and thinking of a few things from the day that you're appreciative of, it really does make a difference. And when you do it, try to notice the feeling in your body. You can just notice the warmth that rises up, or whatever the feeling is that is your experience at that moment. So that's feeling it on a deeper level when you do that. It's not just a cognitive thing. So there's another psychological theory relevant to all of this, and it's called the hedonic treadmill. And this suggests that humans have a tendency to return to a relatively steady state of happiness or subjective well-being following a change in circumstances or external conditions. And so a year or so after somebody wins the lottery, they typically aren't significantly happier than they were before. Similarly, a year or maybe a little longer after somebody has an accident and becomes paraplegic or even quadriplegic, their own evaluation of their well-being in many cases has returned to close to where it was previously. So this is where I'd like to have a discussion with you all about this particular challenge that people in this group are facing. I have known people who have become paraplegic, and I've certainly read about that. And I've also personally known, and I have stage 4 cancer, and so I know what it's like to have uncertainty about time of death. We all have uncertainty about time of death and what might happen between now and then. But I've been living with this for over 3 years now, and I'm happy. And I feel like it helps me to value life. But my grandmother had Alzheimer's and lived with it for many years. And so I saw her decline over more than 15 years. And my feeling, my mom also had a form of dementia, a different form. My feeling was, okay, anything but that. That's the thing I don't want. And my sense is that there perhaps isn't the same kind of resiliency with this particular problem, that if you become a paraplegic, you lose some of your body functioning, but you still feel like you are who you are. And with Alzheimer's at whatever age, so many things change that are connected to really what people take us to be, who we are. We talked a little bit last time about how our culture values the mind and the cognitive abilities, and how perhaps being more heart-centered and appreciating the heart qualities of someone who is symptomatic could help perspective. I think there's the possibility of really just appreciating a symptomatic person who has a lot of love, but also feeling a sadness about it, because it might seem very childlike, or it might seem just different in some way than who they were before. And I wonder if you'd be willing to share what are the ways in which it's particularly difficult, do you think, in this world to be resilient and bounce back to previous levels of happiness and well-being? Or maybe I'm wrong, and maybe you feel that has happened for you. I actually tried to research this, any research about resiliency with dementia or Alzheimer's, and I couldn't find anything. And so I'm not saying I did exhaustive searching, and it could be that I missed it, but I just felt like the direct experience of people here is probably a really valuable starting place. And so what you're saying is that there's uncertainty. What am I adapting to? I don't even know. How do I adapt to something that might happen? And I don't know when, and I don't know what it's going to look like exactly when it happens. That's a tough thing to adapt to. That makes a lot of sense to me. I realize this is a tough question, so we can go slow. We can find our foundation, and just let me know how you're doing with it. Yeah, thank you for that. I really resonate with that myself with my diagnosis, just valuing time and the experiences of connection and the things that choosing to spend time with the things that matter most to me. Yeah. So resiliency includes all of what you have said, and it can also just include accepting that this life that I'm living is this way, and what's the best way that I can make the most of it. We've talked in the previous sessions about allowing what is. Peace is this moment without judgment, without thinking it should be some other way. And that is resiliency as well. And it doesn't mean you don't ever feel angry that it's here, that this is, but if you're just living angry and resentful all the time that you got this illness, then there's not really this space. It's hard to make space for the resiliency. So that it's important to feel the anger and then know I don't want it to be this way, but then to also get to the other side of that and have time that's okay. It is like this, because that's the space where resiliency can be. Thank you for that question. I think that our cultural conditioning tells us certain things about what's important. And you mentioned having a very competitive background and achievement oriented. And I think it's really worthwhile to really ask yourself in a deep way, is that what matters most to me? And when I'm at the end of my life, am I going to care more about this achievement or that achievement, or am I going to care more about the quality of my relationships and who I've loved and how well I've loved? And of course, you can hear as I'm saying that I have a certain bias, and it's not that everybody comes to the same conclusion with that question, but I think that's the kind of questioning that helps you to guide that. Yeah, I appreciate what you said about evaluate it again next week and next month, because it changes. It shifts with time. I've really noticed that. That's beautiful. I love that. Well, I would say there's a great deal of resiliency right here. I think where that question came from for me is some discussions about some of the things that people struggle with. And I think also my own bias, just how I felt about not wanting to have Alzheimer's. So I'm just really moved by everyone's reflections and the ways that you're embracing life and allowing life to be what it is and finding ways of living it fully. And that is what it's all about, loving these moments one after another. Coming back to this theme of really cultivating the capacity for joy and positive experience, I wanted to teach you one more thing. And this comes from Rick Hanson, who's a teacher in the Western Buddhist tradition. And he's written a number of books. One of them is Hardwiring Happiness. And he's a neuropsychologist, and he talks a lot about how do we actually lay down neural pathways. And that seems particularly important that when we can. So his teaching, which is completely research based, is that when you have a positive experience and you want to really encode it and lay down the neural pathway to experience the appreciation and really take in that experience, that it takes a full 20 seconds. And if you possibly can, to just pause and really notice, what's it like? What does this feel like? What do I like about it? How does it feel in my body is such an important part about it. I was at a workshop with him, and he was modeling that 20 seconds frequently throughout the day. And 20 seconds is a long time when it's right in the middle of everything. But we could do it right now. Just, I think there's a field here of caring and understanding, and there's a feeling that we're all in this together, and just feeling that right now and letting yourself notice the felt sense in the body of what is this, really encoding it. And so there's a little bit more capacity now to just take that in. I think that's a big part of what the spiritual path is about, is recognizing that we're all connected to each other by our humanity and by the life that flows through us all. And we're not alone. It's very easy in this kind of crazy world to feel like we're alone and separate. And so to really value the moments that feel less that way, where there is a feeling of, I'm part of this, I belong. Oh, that's so wonderful. I think that when we can, going back to what we value about ourselves, when we can recognize the cultural emphasis, especially in a professional role, on intelligence and competence and quickness, and just say, okay, there are a lot of things about me that are valuable, and none of us has, not any of us on this earth really has a completely full deck. We don't get to have strengths in every single area. And so I think it's a general truth about being human that when we can have the humility to say, this is where I struggle, really we're opening to the possibility of grace, of people allowing us to be who we are. And there's going to be times when maybe people aren't as kind about it, but you find out who people are that way. and come back to your own valuing of yourself, your own good heart, your true intentions, and don't let others define your goodness for you. There's a thing called comparing mind in Buddhist philosophy, and comparing mind is a source of much suffering. When we compare ourselves to others, or we compare ourselves to what we might be like if we didn't have this diagnosis, that can really take us down a dark tunnel. And that's a thing to be on the alert for, that comparing mind. So in the mindfulness tradition, the most powerful tool is awareness. So we always start in we don't like try to change thoughts, or it's a little different than some of the more psychotherapy based approaches. And I find it really to be so powerful and organic. And so it's not about trying hard, but it's simply about noticing, oh, there's comparing mind, and that causes me suffering. And that's the beginning, just to notice how many times a day does that arise for you. And it's a thought arising in your mind. And it's a true thought if you're saying, okay, I'm not going to get to be a grandparent, most likely. There's truth in it, but making it wrong, the idea that it's wrong, that it should be that way, or that it, there's such a fine line. And we've touched on some of this in the previous things, but I've been feeling like I want to read that poem again about peace is this moment without judgment. We don't want to push away the feelings that arise, but I really want that. I really want to experience having grandchildren. So we let ourselves have the thought and the experience and feel the sadness. And you let that wave come through and come to completion. And that's what we've done a lot of work on in the first couple sessions. Just how do we be with those difficult emotions and let them come in through? And then we get to the other side of that. And the idea is to allow that it is like this, to allow ourselves to feel, to rest in the truth. So I'll just read this again. Do you think that peace requires an end to war or tigers eating only vegetables? Does peace require an absence from your boss, your spouse, yourself? Do you think peace will come some other place than here, some other time than now, in some other heart than yours? Peace is this moment without judgment. That is all. This moment in the heart space where everything that is welcome. Peace is this moment without thinking that it should be some other way, that you should feel some other thing, that your life should unfold according to your plans. Peace is this moment without judgment. This moment in the heart space where everything that is welcome. And that's by Dorothy Hunt. And so we welcome the emotions that arise. We welcome the longing that is underneath those emotions. And we allow that it is like this. That's the practice. And if you're finding yourself getting into looping thoughts, that the looping thoughts over and over again are a sign that there's something not very useful that's going on, and that is a cause for suffering. So I have a poem I wanted to read to close today, a different one. And this is by Mary Oliver. It's called Poem of the One World. This morning, the beautiful white heron was floating along above the water, and then into the sky of this, the one world we all belong to, where everything sooner or later is a part of everything else, which thought made me feel for a little while quite beautiful myself. It's been really an honor to be with all of you and to hear your wisdom and your resilient, beautiful thoughts and how you're working with everything in this life. And I just really thank you for being willing to share it and including me in the conversation.